how can a Muslim behave throughout the day from salah to salah? Wallahi, عمل اليوم والليلة, the actions to be done during the day and during the night is something to be concerned about, of course. And Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, when he talked about this, about how the believers should be, and he even categorized them into many different levels, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned them in the Quran. ثم أورثنا الكتاب الذين اصطفينا من عبادنا فمنهم ظالم لنفسه ومنهم مقتصد ومنهم سابق بالخيرات بإذن الله. That the believers are three categories. The first one, which is the worst of them, those who transgress upon themselves. That means they commit sins and so on. And the second category, al-muqtasid, the one that do the obligations and stay away from haram. And the third one, as-sabiq bil khayrat, the one that foremost with goodness, do the obligations, stays away from haram, and do the optional acts of worship. So according to that, a person's life will be filled with actions and things like this. And there are the foundations of things, which is the 5 daily salah, to perfect it. Anything that perfect the obligatory salah, it should be done in the most perfect way. So whether it's to come early to the masjid, and anything that is recommended actions of the obligatory salah is to be given preference over anything else. So, for example, if a person comes early for Salatul Dhuhr, this is better than doing something else. If it's an act of worship, because it's something, anything related to the fard is definitely more rewardable than anything else. So the 5 daily salah in the masjid, there is the sunnah prayer is to be observed. There is the things to be done on a daily basis, like the adhkar, the morning adhkar and the evening adhkar, after Fajr and after Asr, or if it's not after Asr, after Maghrib. The adhkar to be said in any situation, entering the masjid, leaving the masjid, being in a car, all of these types of things, following the way the Prophet ﷺ. And if a person has to fulfill the rights of his dependencies, or he has to seek provisions, then there's the time for it. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made the time between Dhuhr and Fajr and Dhuhr is a long time for people to seek provisions from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is by itself is an act of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a person is someone that seeks knowledge, for example, and he would spend his time seeking the knowledge of the deen of Allah, and this is the most virtuous thing after the fard. Like, what is the most rewardable optional act of worship? Is talabul ilm, seeking knowledge. But without undermining all the different acts of worship, the optional acts of worship. So again, it's different from one person to the other in their busy life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognized that, like even in Surah Al-Muzammil, إِنَّ رَبَّكَ يَعْلَمُ أَنَّكَ تَقُومُ أَدْنَىٰ مِنْ ثُلُثَيِ اللَّيْلِ, to the end, and among you those who are busy with seeking provisions, فَقْرَأُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنْهُ, read whatever is made easy for you. So even those who have busy life during the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognized them, that they should still have a portion of the night, maybe less than others, but they have even something, read something. And as Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Abbas, or Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, one of them, whenever he would, and he said, أَيَعْجَزُ أَحَدُكُمْ, what, excuse me, one of you would be having the inability or fail to every time he comes home from his market, from his work, that he would recite 3 verses of the Quran. That means it's a very easy thing. Right? So if you make it upon yourself, that since no day will pass without reciting Quran, and if you say, for example, you went home, how long would it take to recite 3 verses? Maybe 2 minutes, if you know how to recite. And if you don't, then you learn how to recite. 2 minutes, it's nothing. But at least you did something. And you go out and you come back, read 3 verses. Like that. The point here is, but to have days to pass without reading Quran, this is a problem. And the more the person reads, the more that he would find barakah and blessings in his time. And the other rights in one's life, the rights of the wife, the rights of the children, the rights of others, visiting a sick, being kind to the relatives. And there's so many different things, and it's different from one person to the other. And it's also asking the people of knowledge about these matters, and which makes a unique thing for every person. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. Someone said, even when we are doing all adhkar and our 5 times prayers too, still why we have this empty feeling in heart sometimes, and reading Quran too, praying. The emptiness or the harshness, Allah, we need to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And sins affects us, and what we see throughout the day and night affects us. And nowadays, which is a common complaint, and really what we need to pay attention to, our eyes are always busy with these machines. And what we see affects our hearts. So we have to be extremely careful. You know, the images that people see, the things that people read, it contaminates the heart. Then we complain the hardness of our hearts, qaswatul qalb. Safiya radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, she said that a woman came, امرأة جاءت إلى عائشة radiallahu anha. A woman came to Aisha radiallahu anha complaining. And this is amazing that she would complain of something. And complaining, اشتكت إلى عائشة قساوة قلبها. She's complaining to Aisha radiallahu anha that her heart is hard. Whether it's, you call it emptiness of the heart, there's no softness, there's no effect to the heart with the Quran, with the ibadah, the feel of the good iman and things like this. So Aisha radiallahu anha, she said to her, أكثري ذكر الموت يرق قلبك. Frequently mention death, it will soften your heart. Frequently mention death. So the woman, she came back after some time. ثم جاءت فشكرت عائشة. She said, thank you, O Aisha. She was grateful to Aisha because she did what she said to her to do. فرق قلبها. And her heart became soft. She applied what she told her. So the concern is there, which should be there. This is the first step of the cure. And then one small aspect like this, the hardness of the heart is because the attachment to this dunya, to this worldly life. Even when one of the scholars of when he was asked, how come Kalamus Salaf, the statements or the speech of the early generations of Islam had more effect than the Kalam of Al-Khalaf or the later generations? He said because they تكلموا لعزة الإسلام, because they spoke for the honor of the deen of Islam. So the word had an effect. But the later generations تكلموا لغرض الدنيا وكذا, they talk for the dunya, so there's no effect. So the more the person have the heart attached to the hereafter, the more the softness of the heart. And this comes with the Quran and with being away from the distractions that is basically around us everywhere. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us.